If we could talk to the animals, learn all their languages, maybe take an animal degree. If I conferred with our furry friends, man to animal, think of the amazing repartee. If I could walk with the animals, talk with the animals, grunt and squeak and squawk with the animals, and they could talk to me.
Hello and welcome to Pet Watch, a monthly program devoted to the services and programs at our Williamson County Animal Center. Today, my special guest is Leslie Morrison. Good morning, Leslie.
Good morning.
She is here to educate us about service dogs in general, and you'll see that our second special guest is her dog, Jackson. He is on duty right now. We'll get a little more into that. Jackson is a diabetic service dog, and during the program, you might see Leslie giving him hand signals or rewarding him with treats, and that's a normal part of his everyday behavior to reinforce the training that he has had. I want to give our viewers a little background on you, Leslie. You do live here in Williamson County.
Yes.
You're in the pharmaceutical business, but you're also in the advocacy business in many ways for service dogs. What are some of the ways that you work with your own medical condition being diabetes? What are some of the ways that you work in the community and other organizations you work with in trying to educate people about service animals?
Sure. One of the things, I work with diabetic alert dogs, the Borderland Way. Leave it, sit. You'll see him, he's a little bit concerned today because my blood sugar was actually low on the way over here. So he's a little bit concerned, trying to tell you we need to pay special attention to what's going on, and he's going to be constantly smelling and checking me. But I work with diabetic alert dogs, the Borderland Way. We are a service dog organization that is very unique in the country, and I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit more. And one of the things I do, other than training service dogs, is to educate the public on the access laws for service dogs. So recently we have trained, the police department for Franklin, Williamson County Animal Center, organizations such as that deal with public access law associated with the ADA.
Okay, and this will all lead back to your own medical diagnosis of diabetes at a very early age.
Right.
And your life kind of has taken a route that kind of ties in the fact that you have a chronic illness with your ability to, and your interest in animals and your interest in the pharmaceutical community. It's all kind of woven together.
Yes.
One of the things I think our viewers need to know up front is we've all heard of the American with Disabilities Act, or the ADA, and that is a federal law that protects people with disabilities from any form of discrimination. How does that come into play with service dogs? What are the rules?
So the ADA is federal law, as you said, and service dogs have full public access to any government building, any business, anywhere that the public is allowed. They cannot be discriminated against. They are protected by the Department of Justice, as the ADA falls under that. And as long as it is an official service dog, and that means it's accompanying a handler with a disability that falls under the ADA, they're allowed full public access.
What kinds of questions can a person ask, a business owner ask, or a restaurant owner, or an airline, or any place you go? What kind of questions can they ask you when you come up with Jackson?
Sure. A lot of times people do not recognize someone like me as a person with a disability. So I've had type 1 diabetes for 38 years. I had a kidney transplant 14 years ago. I had stents put in my heart and my legs 7 years ago. I'm only 43. So I have retinopathy, which is damage to my eyes, neuropathy, which is damage to my feet and my nerves. But to look at me, I'm not blind with a seeing eye dog, but I still have those multiple disabilities. So they cannot ask about my disabilities, and that is just a privacy law. So the only questions that one can ask to a service dog handler is twofold. Is this a service dog required by a disability? And secondly, what task or tasks has the dog been trained to perform? They cannot ask about your medical condition. They cannot ask to see Jackson's certification, although he has it, and I do carry it with me, but they can only ask those 2 questions.
Is there a national clearinghouse type of registry for all service dogs?
Unfortunately, no. We would like for there to be one.
Yeah.
There are people who are trying to portray pets as service dogs, which is actually a violation of federal law. And because you're claiming that you have a disability when you do not. Jackson, sit. Thank you. Watch. And so we would like there to be a national certification that we could get through animal control, almost like a driver's license possibly, that we wouldn't have any pushback. I get a lot of pushback. Even though they see that Jackson is wearing his vest, people can get their hands on vests. And it makes it very difficult for people like me who their life depends on their service dog.
And another broad category of persons who may not appear to have an obvious disability are those who are suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, either from their service in the armed services or for other reasons. You have also lent your expertise to a local organization called Fetching Freedom, which does similar things with dogs, trains them to comfort sufferers of PTSD. And that's another category that's difficult for people to understand, the trauma and how it can come back. And as I understand it, those triggers are not medical in the sense that yours is blood sugar, but PTSD sufferers often have tremendous amount of anxiety and an inability to walk in a store. And their dogs do similar things to what Jackson does, don't they?
Yes. I'm on the board of directors for Fetching Freedom. Very honored to be a part of such a wonderful group. And PTSD dogs are actually, the veterans are challenged quite often, and it's very unfortunate. And those PTSD dogs are trained to perform a specific task. They will remove a veteran from a situation that's recreating the traumatic event for him, and it could be any trigger. So they are taught to take a hold of a sleeve and pull. They are taught to get medication. They are performing a task. Just like Jackson is a medical alert, diabetic alert dog, and he alerts me when my blood sugar is too low or too high. That is a task directly related to my disability. PTSD dogs also do the same related to the disability of the veteran.
And that's through their training and interaction. The way Jackson's been trained is through the sense of smell. Let's talk a little bit about a dog's sense of smell and why he's good at what he does.
Yes. So Jackson is actually a rescue. He is a Golden Retriever rescue. We adopted Jackson when he was very, very young, and I knew immediately that he had the potential to do this. So his training has taken almost 2 years to be fully consistent, and he is specifically trained to alert to anything with my blood sugar 70 and below. Your blood sugar right now would probably be 90. So anything 70 and below, he will alert. Anything over 230 to 250, he will also alert so that it doesn't get too high. Leave it. Thank you. And he does that by smell. So he smells a chemical change in my body when that happens. He can also sense a trend, so a rise, which is what he's sensing now, which is why he's a little bit agitated. On the way over, when my blood sugar dropped, he alerted in the car. We stopped, I checked my blood sugar, it was a little low, I treated, and now it's going up. And he senses that rise. So he wants to be close to me, and you notice how he's constantly staring at me because he's checking the smell.
And he'll go back to a calm state when it's back at a level point.
Yes.
Let's go back to when you got Jackson. When you talked about you knew immediately or very soon that he had the potential to be a diabetic alert service dog. What kinds of traits do dogs have to be good service animals?
It's very different for the category of service dog, but specifically for diabetic alert dogs, we look for several things. First of all, we look for a stable dog. Diabetic alert dogs, along with any service dog, has to be stable in that they don't spook easy. You never know when random noises are going to occur. A tent fell on Jackson one time at Dick's Sporting Goods, just, a display. So we look for a very stable dog. We look for a dog who has a very pleasant temperament because they're out in public. Good boy, he's settling.
So one of the things that you talked about him being a rescue dog or a shelter dog, same thing. There are organizations that actually take puppies and train them to be service dogs of different types, and then through different agencies, and they offer those dogs basically for purchase to people. Like you see that a lot with guide dogs for the blind, or that they're trained as puppies and in a camp type setting with an organization. They go through rigorous training. That can be costly. And I don't even know if anybody's doing that with diabetic dogs, but this Borderland Way is different.
Yes, so like I said, we look for a dog that's very stable, has a pleasant temperament. The key success to Jackson and I working is our bond. So you want a dog that is either well bonded with their handler already or can establish that bond. But the number one thing we look for is the nose with a diabetic alert dog. His nose is incredible and it's working right now. I can see it. With puppies, it's actually hard to know until they get older. You've got to have that temperament develop, see how the bond is going to form. But organizations that train diabetic alert dogs from puppies, you can pay anywhere between $15,000 and $30,000. Diabetic alert dogs, the Borderland Way, if the dog and the handler meets the criteria and the dog and handler passes the evaluation, then it's a type of a train the trainer program. So what we'll do is we have classes, and the dog must have its Canine Good Citizen designation before they can even enter the class, because from there they're going to start working on public access.
And that's offered at local through local pet stores or agencies, or how do you get? You
have to find a CGC evaluator. In town there are probably 4 or 5. I'm a CGC evaluator, but I don't do personal pet training. So you do have to go somewhere where they can offer the CGC testing for you and training. From that point forward, we start basic training we used to do 10 weeks for the introduction class. Now we do 6 weeks, but a much longer time frame while we're there to get extended work in. But Jackson has trained, oh gosh, Jackson, how long? About 2 years to be fully consistent. He was alerting at 11 weeks, but it was not consistent. And it takes the longest to get to night alerts, which is often the fatal part.
I was reading about that. The night alert is an advanced training for him, but he's reached that point now.
Yes.
And what is the critical nature of a night alert? So people who are not familiar with diabetes.
Yes, so with type 1 diabetes, often after you've had it for many years, you're asleep and you do not sense when your blood sugar drops. It's rare that I know that my blood sugar is dropping. So without Jackson telling me, I would probably have a seizure at a certain point and then go into what's called a hypoglycemic coma, which leads to death. So when you're sleeping, that compounds the fact that you're not sensing what's going on. So we always say Jackson sleeps with one eye open and his nose going 100%.
Right.
And when my blood sugar drops in the middle of the night, his night alerts are different than his day alerts. So during the day, he will get close to me, he will smell all around, and then he will paw me. If I don't say a specific word to him, telling him I'm acknowledging that, then he will step back and he will bark. And I watched him step back a minute ago and I thought the bark was coming. If I don't say that word, he will alert you. If you don't respond, he will go find someone else and alert. In the middle of the night, Jackson, leave it. Sit. Thank you. in the middle of the night, he will actually stand up on the bed and he will bark right in my ear to let me know, hey, you need to get up.
Has that happened to you before?
Oh, yes, many, many
okay.
times. And he wants to make sure that you know you need to get up immediately. And we go into the kitchen, we check my blood sugar, and I sit down on the floor just in case I were to pass out, and he sits and lays in my lap, you know, typically for a few minutes, and then he gets concerned like he is today, and he will stand and he will get as close as he can. So he's trying to get as close as possible so he can continue to smell the chemical changes coming out of my body.
It's interesting that our viewers will get to see a real slice of life because he's been working through this whole show.
Right, he's been working through this whole show.
He
Absolutely.
has. Now, you mentioned type 1 diabetes. Can you educate us the differences
Yes.
briefly and what you were diagnosed as a child?
I was 5.
Okay. Was that a traumatic event in your I mean,
You
was it
know,
a sudden onset, or how did that occur?
It was very sudden onset. I don't remember much about it other than being very, very, very sick. So type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune disease. It means that abruptly your pancreatic cells are just destroyed. Type 2 diabetes is brought on over time by a long-term dysfunctioning of the pancreatic cells. It's genetic, it runs in families, and it's often associated with long-term struggles with weight that causes the pancreas to overwork. Type 1 being autoimmune typically happens very quick. They think possibly associated with a virus. And so I was just fine 1 minute, and then 1 minute I was very, very sick, and it took them a long time to figure out. You know, they just didn't know enough about type 1 diabetes.
Is that
long ago.
also referred to as juvenile diabetes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
And
but
so-
it can happen at any age.
Happen at any age. But are diabetic alert dogs more suited for type 1 type people, or they also work with
Yes.
type 2 people?
So we only train type 1.
Type 1, okay.
The majority, I don't actually know of any program that trains type 2 in the country, because with type 1, you're typically on an insulin pump. You're controlling your blood sugar based on the carbohydrates you eat, but you get a lot of roller coasters during
I know
the day.
you're very conscious, obviously, since having this since 5 years old, and I've been around you, and you pretty much know exactly what to eat, exactly when to eat it, and kind of try to predict what your body does. But still, the disease defies all your planning.
Sure.
And that's the nature of it, is where the dog comes in. Is because
Right.
despite the fact that you might have the pump, you take the meds, you live the lifestyle, you eat the right foods, that does not mean that your disease is under control 100% of every day.
Absolutely. Especially with me being a transplant recipient, the medicines that I take are diabetogenic, which means that they cause your blood sugar to rise. I take steroids that causes your blood sugar to rise. So you're constantly fighting it. Everything in the environment influences your blood sugar. Stress, food, just normal everyday changes that go throughout the day. For women, hormones play a big part in it. And so Jackson's never off duty, ever. And that's the hard thing to train a dog like this. And it's also miraculous because the vest doesn't mean that. It means he is working in public access environment, but he never stops working. You see how close he is to me right now, and he is taking in, even by licking my hand. Leave it.
It's that sense of
Thank
smell
you. Sit.
never leaves him. And I was reading about
Right.
how many, there's like 300 million receptors.
I know.
And like a person has like 19 million. A dog has 300 million
Right.
in the brain. It's like they were put on this earth
Right.
to detect these minute changes that no
Right.
other animal
Right.
that I know of that I've read about can do.
It's really unbelievable. I can tell just by how Jackson is acting, like right now, I can tell my blood sugar is not where it needs to be. And so I know that, I recognize that. If I didn't have Jackson, I wouldn't know. And I could be walking down the street and pass out and die without him alerting. So he's already making me aware by his somewhat agitation, his constant checking to let me know, hey, Mom, something's going on here. He is a tool in the toolbox to help, because I wear an insulin pump. I check my blood sugar 10 to 12 times a day. I count every carb that goes in my mouth. We get in a good 3 to 5 miles a day of exercise, but he can beat the machines. He can beat the continuous glucose monitors. A continuous glucose monitor that's constantly monitoring your blood sugar is 20 minutes behind. In 20 minutes, I could be dead.
He's on the spot.
He's
He's
on
up
the
to the
spot.
minute, up to the second.
He's on the spot. And it's because of that bond, that smell, and for him, he realizes this is Mom's not normal right now. This is not right, and I need to do something to fix this.
Well, one of the things that I admire you most for is the fact that you advocate for other people who are in situations where the local community, school, business, organization that they're trying to walk into with their diabetic service dog may not understand the federal law and may be denying that person or that child the right to have that trained animal with them at school.
Right.
Unfortunately, that's still a struggle. It's a struggle for anyone with a non-obvious
Yes.
Disability.
Yes.
I know you worked with school districts, school children. You've educated many corporate organizations.
Yes.
There are plenty of people in this country who take their service animals to the place of work every day.
Yes.
These dogs are working all over
Yes.
the country in all fields. Tell us, in general, what do you feel like we need to do, or people need to do, to help you in your quest to educate people? Let's talk about when we run across someone like you with a dog with a service vest on. What should our reaction be, and in general, and specifically, what we shouldn't do when we see you?
Right. So it's very interesting. Jackson, I travel a lot, and so Jackson goes everywhere with me. He flies on planes. He's everywhere, and people constantly, you have two reactions. You have the people who completely ignore because they understand that's a service dog working and I should not get involved. And then you have people who completely do not understand what's going on and they want to stop you, talk to you about your dog, touch your dog, pet your dog, make eye contact with your dog. And they have all the great intentions. They just don't exactly understand. So you have to remember, first of all, when you see someone with a service dog, assume that dog is working, that dog is focused. You should never distract a service dog in any form or fashion, because when Jackson has his vest on, it doesn't interfere with the fact that he's constantly working to identify what my blood sugar is doing. But he knows when the vest is on that he is working in a public place, and he knows that he has to have perfect manners. When the vest is off, he's all puppy. He's already played in the snow this morning. He's chased the ball. My husband threw snowballs at him. But what our biggest challenges are, in a normal work day, or especially at an airport, something like that, you're trying to get from point A to point B in a timely manner. So people stop you and they want to talk to you, and you don't want to be rude, and I use that as a time to educate. But it's important to just let a person be with their service dog. Don't distract, don't interfere, don't make eye contact with the dog. I always suggest to people that they acknowledge the handler if they notice the dog with a simple nod or a smile, and then keep going, because it can very much break the focus of the dog and interfere with its work.
Wow. Tell us about some of the other problems that people with service dogs encounter when they go out in public.
I think the number one problem that we encounter is people with invisible disabilities are constantly being challenged. People are very uneducated about ADA law. They don't know what questions, the two questions that they can ask. Again, is that a service dog required for a disability? And I would say yes. Secondly, what task or tasks has the dog been trained to perform? He is a medical alert service dog. People ask very inappropriate questions. They ask for inappropriate certification that doesn't even exist.
Right.
Oftentimes.
And I'm sure there are some that are completely rude, like, hey lady, you can't bring that dog in here.
You can't bring
so
your pet
you are
in here.
constantly a PR. You have to be a PR
Yes.
person and kill them with kindness. And
Yes.
that's the kind of person you are. But I can imagine that it must be trouble for many people every day. I'm
Yes.
gonna have to wrap up. This is so interesting, and it's been such a great experience to see Jackson at work this morning and to talk to you, Leslie. I want to let our viewers know that they can go to diabeticalertdogs-borderland.com. That is a Middle Tennessee organization with training facilities in several Middle Tennessee cities, so it's close by. It's not something far away, so if you're in Middle Tennessee, you have diabetes or someone in your family does, and you feel like they would benefit from a service dog, please get in touch with Diabetic Alert Dogs, the Borderland Way, on Facebook or on the internet. And if you have someone in your family that's maybe suffering from PTSD, contact fetchingfreedom.com. That's Andrea Robinson's organization. I'd also like to mention several things that are happening at the shelter. The Fido Foundation has been formed by the Destination Imagination group from Hillsborough Middle School to raise money. So if you'd like to help those kids, go to helpadogtoday.com. On March 7th, the shelter will have an adoption event at the Hometown Pet Store on Highway 96 in Franklin. That's near the new Kroger. That's from 11 to 3 on March 7th. Then on March 14th, we're supporting a local rescue group called Music City Animal Rescue. They're trying to build a new facility and add on to the services that they provide. We like to work with them on many occasions. They help us place animals on a weekly basis, and we're supporting their concert on March 14th. It's down at the Hillsborough Leapers Fork Community Center, and you should buy tickets now. It's a concert and dinner featuring musical performer David Frizzell and Highway 101. You can get those tickets at musiccityanimalrescue.com. It ought to be a fun night. And during March, we're going green for St. Patty's, and all the pets in the animal shelter that are marked with a green shamrock are 50% off their adoption fee. There will be no-fee adoptions on St. Patrick's Day, which we're calling St. Catrick's and St. Pity's Day. So come by the shelter during the month of March and pick out an animal for you. We are located at 106 Claude Yates Drive, just north of Franklin High School, and we're open for adoption every day from 10 to 6, Monday through Friday, and Saturday from 11 to 3. Be sure and like us on Facebook, and I hope to see you next time on Pet Watch.
If we could talk to the animals, learn all their languages, maybe take an animal degree. If I conferred with our furry friends, man to animal, think of the amazing repartee. If I could walk with the animals, talk with the animals, grunt and squeak and squawk with the animals, and they could talk to me.
I am for the child who's had 7 addresses in a single year because she's in foster care, because her father abused her, and her mother couldn't believe her. She is the child I am for. I am a CASA volunteer. I am you.
I was severely injured in an ambush right towards the end of my first tour. Part of the stigma is that people think if I ask for help that I'm showing weakness, whereas I think it's just the opposite. It takes real strength to say, I've got an issue that I'm dealing with and it's affecting my life and it's affecting my performance and I need to go get some help. And I can attest that it's there and it does help.
Things are so nice when you come back initially, and then the regular life sets in and you start having trouble thinking about your past experiences. You have to be ready to tell your story. But this generation seems to want to talk about it, and it's very therapeutic, so everybody should be given a chance to tell their story.
We're taught from day one, recruit, train, and take care of each other, no matter what the condition is. It all comes back to, it takes real strength to swallow your pride and to say, I need help, and actually get the help.